Hello, in this video we're going to talk about some of the basics in our class, our Canvas class, and how they're set up, and then jump into creating a form for the first time. If you're brand new to doing that, I'll provide you some step-by-step directions. So first of all, each module our lesson is designed in a similar manner. There's an overview, there's an assignment section, and usually there'll be a Google slide presentation. If there's a video that you can view, it'll be a link here. And there might be some other additional resources just depending on what the lesson is. There's usually a video and there's usually a presentation. Unless there's no new skills for that lesson, then it would just be a matter of using skills that you've already learned. And then as you scroll down, there's a section for you to begin the lesson with some step-by-step guidelines. Some lessons will have an advanced option if it's appropriate, or there's some activities for those of you that are experienced Google users, form users. You're encouraged to do those, but those are always optional. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do always is go to my Google Drive and open my Google Form folder. I want to start everything in this folder so that when it's ready to submit, I can easily find it. And it saves me steps for having to move it into the folder. So I'm going to go ahead and start with New. And Google Forms doesn't show on this list, but there's a More option. And then if I use that and use that little arrow, there's Google Forms right there. Now this arrow means that you have a couple options. You can create a blank form or from a template. For this class, we're pretty much doing just a blank form. So when you just click on Google Forms, a blank form comes up. All right, so this is what it looks like to get started. So the first thing I would encourage you to do is number your assignments by the module number and the lesson number, and then add your own title, whatever it happens to be. So this is the file name. That's what you will look for in your Google Drive, so that when you're looking to submit a form, if you need to go back and edit, go back and do anything with it, this is what you'll be looking for. That's what you see. Participants and learners do not see this. And then if I just click here where it says Untitled, it copies that over. Now I probably wouldn't want, if I was going to use this form, this information to show. So I can just easily modify that. It doesn't impact anything. All right, let's just look at some of the menu items because Forms looks different than the other apps that you may have been working with. First of all, here's the folder icon if I want to move this form to a different location. The star if I want to star it because I want it to remain as a important document in my folder. We'll be looking at responses, and that's after people have added information to your form, we can go in there to look at the results. Over to the right here are the main menus. Now, if yours doesn't show up, it might be that you're working on a smaller computer and the window isn't quite as large. So in that case, some of those menus will get hidden under this three dots, that More menu, but they will be there. It's just that you're going to see them in a different way. So if that ever happens to you, it's just that your window isn't quite as large as the normal windows are. So I'm just going to quickly go over them, but you'll be exploring each of these as you work through the class. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is changing the theme. This one's really important. After you've designed your form, it's always critical to preview it and test it a couple times. The worst thing you want to do is send a form out and realize after people have started taking it that you've missed something important. This is settings, and we'll be doing a lot of work with settings. The send button is going to be very important because this is where you're going to actually create the link to submit your form to class. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So this is the title of the form. This is what you want everybody to see. You can add a little description if you want here. This is set up to automatically collect email addresses for Clark County School District users. If you don't want that to happen, you can click here and change that and just uncheck it. And that's under the settings, which you'll be looking at in more detail as we move through the class. Now, this one is also set to restrict to users. Now, if you don't belong to the Clark County School District organization, you aren't going to see these two options, so don't worry about it. I'm going to uncheck that. If there's any chance that this form will be used outside of Clark County, I don't want people to click on the link and then tell me that they can't get access to it. So I'm going to uncheck that for right now. And we'll be looking at the rest of these in a while. So I'm going to save those settings. Now here's my first, it always comes up with an untitled question just to get you started. So let's just get started. So in 99.999 cases, you need to know who's filling out your form. So the first thing I'm going to ask is their name. And I like to ask first name, last name separately because this information can be populated into a Google Sheet, and that allows me to do some sorting if I have the name separated without adding any extra steps to the work I'm doing. By default, Google is going to anticipate the type of question they think you are, the question type that's appropriate to the question that you're asking. So a lot of times it's right, but you don't have to rely on that. You can change it just by clicking that pull-down menu and select a different question type. Okay, you can, so it's set up to be a short answer. By default, it's set up as a required question, and I like that. Required just means they can't submit the form until they've given me their first name, and for me, that would be important. If you have an anonymous form, which is not unheard of, then of course these options are not critical. The first form that you're going to be creating is one of just what are the 3 or 4 questions that you want to include on almost every form you do. And so your first form is going to be setting that up because there's a really cool feature that they've added to Google Forms where you can import questions from another form. And so that will save me some steps if I create my basic information form. And I'm going to just rename this as basic information. Okay. All right, back to my questions. Now, down here along the lower part of the question are some of the icons. It's nice, you point to them, it tells you what it does. Duplicates, deletes it, the required, of course. And there's always more options under the 3 dots. And you can add an additional description. So, maybe some people go by a nickname, if you want to add something in there about that. And there's something called data validation, a response validation, that will be a more advanced topic that we'll cover in the class. So just be aware that that's there. And if you want to explore it when it's appropriate, feel free to. I'm going to duplicate because basically the next thing I want is their last name. Okay. Again, I want it required is a short answer. If I'm doing work with students, I might always want to ask for their student number. You may have students that have very similar names. Having that student number might just help you identify them more quickly. Again, if I'm working with students, I may want to know what class they're in. But that's not really a short answer. I mean, it could be, but I want them to pick from the classes I teach in a certain format, so it'll be easy for me, again, on the back end to sort or filter based on that information. So I'm going to make this a drop-down menu. And for this form, maybe I only want period 1 and 3 and 4 to fill it out. All right. So again, maybe these are my basic questions. You might ask for their email address. Depends on if you want. There are some things down the road where you may want them to email the responses to them. So decide what the majority of questions are that you will ask each time in a form and include this in your basic information form. Now sometimes we want to add another question here. And that lets us bring up just a blank question. And then you have all these choices to pick from. The first few forms, we're going to just work with these first top. These are your basic question types. And then we'll also work with linear scale, grids, the two different grids. The date and times are usually those if you want to explore outside of that. File upload would definitely be a more advanced topic, which is very cool, but it does take some more organization and understanding on how that works. So that'll probably be an advanced topic. Make sure that you have the question, appropriate question, and then the answer types that you want to use. Now, if I didn't want that in there, I can just delete it. But let's preview this real quickly. So I just click the preview. This is the exact form that my participants will see, my students, my teachers, my whomever you're sending this form to that you want them to fill out the information. So I see it's asking for my first name. So if I was testing this, I would just start typing in the information and making sure it works the way I want. Now I see, oops, I've got this option 1, this hanging question there. So I know that I've got to go back and fix that. So that's another reason to preview. You don't want your forms to have any of these easy to fix issues in them. So let's go back and just delete that question. Something else you can do is you can change the order. So there's 6 little dots here in a rectangle. If I just click and drag, I can move and change the order. So the class period, whoop, that was way more than I wanted it to be. So let me try and just do that again. And obviously it takes more skill set than I have. There we go. That's what I wanted. So first name, last name, class period, and then maybe their student number. Again, I think you need to have 3 to 4 questions here, but if you have a different need, then contact your instructor. So that's an overview, quick overview of Google Forms and getting started. Some of the other items here, this is the import questions. If you want to add a title, sometimes you'll be asked to separate out the questions just to make the form a little bit more informative. You'll be working with images and videos and adding sections. So these are some of the more features that you'll be working with. All right, that's it. Now, if I go back to my Google Drive, I should see this in it, title 1-2, basic student information. And so that's my form. If I need to open it again, I can. You notice when I previewed it, it opened it in a different tab. So now the next part I want to make sure you understand is how do I submit this to Canvas? Well, the send button is going to be your go-to place. This allows you to email it, but per PDE requirements, all assignments must be submitted to Canvas. So you will use the email, but on a limited basis. What you will be doing the majority of the time is submitting this link. So you can click the link. It has this ugly URL. You simply copy it, and then you go into Canvas and paste that link into the website URL box in the assignment submission section. So it's just that quick to submit the link to Canvas. And this would be the same link I would send out to students, teachers, parents, if I wanted them to complete the form also. So the sharing, again, is different than what you're used to if you've been using docs and slides and sheets. So it works just a little differently. All right, so hopefully this quick video gets you up and running in creating Google Forms. Remember, start in your class folder. That way you don't have to move it in there, and it's easy to find if you need to go back and edit or redo it for any reason. So take care and have fun creating your Google Forms.